Hello everyone, and we are here in the very small town of Neville, Ohio. Take a little look around here. This town is home to a whopping 87 people. 87 people live in this town. But there is one story surrounding this town that is so unknown to almost everybody in existence. This was the home, the temporary home of Louis Philippe I of France. When he was in exile during the French Revolution, he came down the Ohio River on a flatboat and settled in what is now Neville, Ohio. No one lived here at the time. It was just, he found a log cabin with a family that lived there. Old pioneers in the 1790s up here. Asked them if he could stay in because he was a traveling school teacher. He told them that, and they let him stay in the town. It's unknown who these people were. But for a few decades, about 20 years, Louis Philippe I lived here in Neville, Ohio. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of Neville, Ohio. We'll get into more of the Louis Philippe I story here in a minute. But this is the park in downtown Neville. 87 people live here. It was first laid out in 1808. This town was. And at that time, Thomas Jefferson was president of the United States. Louis Philippe I was still here in 1808. This town was named in honor of General Presley Neville, who was a Revolutionary War soldier. These signs are unreadable because who knows what used to be on here. This is a park. It's got everything a normal town has. It has a post office. It has a church. It's even got a local business over here. Let's go check this out. Here's the local business, Misfitland headquarters. It's the headquarters of Misfitland. Never heard of it. Or misfitland.org. Go give them a follow, I guess. But yeah, we have a couple buildings. Again, 87 people live here. If you're one person here, one person is more than 1% of the population. So 1.something% is one person. You see that girl swinging over there? That is like 1.5% of the population of this place. So that's how small it is. Very peaceful area. Now the reason Louis Philippe came here, pretty obvious. He didn't want anybody to find him because during the French Revolution, Louis XVI was executed in 1793. Immediately following that, he came over to the US. He came to the very young United States looking for a place to hide himself from the French government. Which had, hated the royals, and he was born in nobility. He was born in 1773 to he was the son of the Duke de Orleans. So he was part of the House of Orleans, the only king from the House of Orleans. So he came over here, and I guess came over to Pennsylvania, got on the river on a flatboat, and he took him over to the Ohio River, and I guess this is where he decided to stop. Again, no one lived here. This is all forest. And so he hid his identity for 20 years. No one knew where he was for 20 years. And from here, he lived here until 1814. In 1814, he came back to France after Napoleon was put in exile off to the island, and then he lived there for the next 7 years. So once Napoleon was over, that's when he finally went back to France. And then once that happens, the House of Bourbon gets back on the throne with Louis XVIII and Charles X. Their shenanigans happen. France becomes a republic and then a liberal monarchy. Very briefly, Louis Philippe I was the only one from the liberal monarchy, taking the throne in 1830 after the abdication of Charles X and Louis XIX. Again, Louis XIX, another story with him, he was only king for 20 minutes because Charles X was forced to abdicate in favor of the new liberal monarch. So Louis Philippe I was kind of a king who ruled, but the people ruled. It was like a monarchy where the people had power. It was weird. I don't even know why he was a monarch. He was more of a prime minister than anything. But, so Charles X abdicates, 20 minutes later, Louis XIX abdicates, then we get Henri V for about 2 weeks. And then we get Louis Philippe I. He's in there till 1848. 1830, 1848. In 1848, France becomes a republic. And then after that, in 1852, Napoleon's nephew, Napoleon III, comes in and makes France an empire. And then after that, in 1870, the Franco-Prussian Wars happen, which lead it to France becoming a republic for good. So that's kind of the history behind that. So France was kind of after the French Revolution happened. But during the French Revolution, since Louis Philippe I was born a noble, all of the nobility were executed during the French Revolution because the people of France hated all of the nobles, like all the kings and queens. They chopped off Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, his queen, their heads. They all lost their heads. And Louis Philippe I knew that he was going to die too. He was like the second cousin of Louis XVI from a different royal house through a less senior line, and was thus still a Capet monarch. Still direct male line because descendant of Hugh Capet going back way to 987. But anyway, here's the church. But yeah, basically no one knew where he was at. He came back, and when he was king, during his rule, he quoted the family, mentioned the family that he stayed with here in Neville, Ohio. I don't know exactly what he said, but he mentioned that they treated him very well. He didn't give much details, but he did recall his stay here in Neville at some point during his rule in the 1830s. So here's the church. There is a little plaque on the rock over here that we need to read. See if it's got any information about anything. I've never been here before, so it's all new to me. There's the Washington Township Fire Rescue. At the height of this town's population in 1880, as the 1880 census, it got all the way up to 445 people. Now it's dropped to 87, which is the lowest in the history of this town. I don't know what's going on over there, but anyway. So here's a little bit of the history. This is the Claremont County bicentennial marker. Now, for those of you that know anything about Claremont County, Ohio, this is not only the place where Louis Philippe I stayed, because it's very unknown. Ulysses S. Grant was born over there in Point Pleasant. President Grant, right over there. His birthplace is like right down the road, basically. But no one lives here. Claremont County bicentennial marker, Neville, Ohio, 1812 was when it was officially laid out, but it was first incorporated in 1808. The town was situated in the first survey, number 388, made in the Virginia Military District of Ohio. So at this point, it was just a Virginia Military District. This was not a county or anything. Cincinnati existed. Cincinnati's down the road, way down the road, but it existed in 1812. But this was just a Virginia military occupied area. This was just unknown land, basically. And on the 13th of November, 1787, John Obenon surveyed a tract of 1,400 acres for Colonel John Neville, who served 7 years with General George Washington during the Revolutionary War. And he fought with Washington during the Whiskey Rebellion as well, even though there was no fighting. He just came in with Washington in 1794 to Pennsylvania to take down the Whiskey Rebels. John Neville did. He died in 1803. His son, Presley Neville, inherited the land and received a patent from President James Madison. Presley laid out the town of Neville in 1812. So 1812 is when it officially became a town. People have been living here since 1808. It was incorporated in 1854 officially. It took him that long. But Presley Neville laid out the town. His father, John, served with General Washington during the Revolutionary War and during the Whiskey Rebellion of 1794. Now, we got the Washington Township Fire Department over here. I don't know what's going on.
It's an ambulance. Somebody's hurt.
Right here. So Louis Philippe I's picture is like 1793. No one lives here. Again, this is all forest at the time. Louis Philippe I settles somewhere up in here. He's coming. It's just him. No one else is with him. Because he wants to find the most isolated place that he can possibly be, to where no one will find him. And he hides his own identity. No one knows where he is or who he is. Because he did not want to lose his head like all the other nobles did. Most of the nobles went to other countries in Europe to be hid. But Louis Philippe decided to change his mind westward. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity here in the United States than there was in Europe, especially back then. So this is where he came up, somewhere around here is the Ohio River. Again, no motorcycles back then. This was all forest, and he stayed here until, you know, with the First Republic, and as well as Napoleon's invasions during the Napoleonic Wars. He was also here, again, hiding his own identity, basically staying with that unknown family in the log cabin over there. So the rest of this town, there is apparently a post office that is still in operation here that was first started in 1816. Now, to finish off the video, we're going to go check out the cemetery. There's a cemetery here. We're going to see if there's what the history is of this cemetery, which I don't know if it's much, but there might be some. I think there's some Civil War veterans at least. So again, this is a very old town. So we're ending off the video on the back streets of Neville. There it is. It's where we just were. There's the church. We're in the Neville Cemetery. I don't know what's going on there with the police, but the ambulance. But we're gonna check out, see if there's any historic, obviously, no famous graves here. But that's sad. There's a chance that maybe the people that housed Louis Philippe I are buried here, but I highly doubt it. They're probably buried in the farm. And no one really knows how far up they were, but the founder of the town, Presley Neville, isn't even buried here. So you see the American flags, means they were soldiers of the Civil War with the Star Badge. Now I wonder what this means. The blue flag is. I'm not sure. Looks like that grave has been destroyed for the most part. A lot of people on that one stone, that's the thing. 197th Ohio Infantry Regiment. Civil War. So that was a little bit later on. Basically, in the past 150 years, not much has gone down in this town. Look at that. That'll be the news. Alright, 1851. I wonder if this symbolizes anything or if that just means rest in peace. Because they're only on those really destroyed graves. Here is another Civil War. This guy was in 84th Ohio. They were Strat. Very old tree as well. I don't know how old this thing is. But you can tell these are the cemetery trees you're going to see. Very old. Very old. There's Lydia Lemon. It's grave. That's a nice one. Christian. Captain John McLean right here. Look at that stone. Look at this. It's got gravel in there. Wow, I've never seen such a nice. That's a really well done grave. Captain John McLean. Born on March 30th, AD 1798. Departed this life on October 7th, AD 1853. At age, I guess that'd be probably about 50, 55 years old. Can't read the quote. See if I get closer to read it. We're witnessing a scene right here as filming. Let's carry on. For an 87-person town, it's pretty high popping right now. Anyway, look at this. This is cool. Erected by the citizens in the schools of New Richmond. New Richmond is a town over there. To the memory of J. Warren Mahan, who died on October 16, 1863, aged 38 and 22 days. A worthy citizen and beloved teacher. So this was a very old school teacher, not Louis Philippe. This place. Now let's see if I can read the quote. It's very hard to read, but this is a well done stone. Look at this place. I mean, I'm not going to go in here because that's probably pretty disrespectful. But are they actually bringing that work up? Here's a view of the cemetery from this side. Look at some of these trees too. It amazes you, like some of the oldest trees you're ever going to find are in cemeteries for sure. In 1863, so how they're 38 only when they died, so they probably were serving when they died. 38 years old, it means they were born in 1825. That is Neville, Ohio, and the amazing unknown history of this town. If you ever find yourself here, then just know Louis Philippe I stayed here. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching. Okay, before we get shot, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Wow.